That's your Gap hoodie, is that right?
It is me.
That's you, who you shooting at?
Young Dolph.
Alright, now back it up again.
That's the same hoodie you were wearing, yeah? He tagged me. First run the footage back and see who he lets shots off toward. Those words hit different when you realize the person talking is one of the dudes who meet Young Dolph, and he's straight up admitting to the murder on tape. And he ain't stopping there. He's talking about Yo Gotti's name coming up in the plan. Plus, who else was supposed to be on that list? You can imagine how the streets feel about someone letting info slip like this. Dudes are heated, and this man knows he might have to look over his shoulder for the rest of his life. But let's break this all down, because this story shook Memphis in a way the city hasn't felt in years. Memphis might look calm from the outside, but when it comes to loyalty, pride, and history, this city don't play at all. And even with all the drama Memphis has lived through, nothing compares to what went down on that cold day in November 2021. The day one of the most respected voices in the South was taken out in broad daylight.
The whole world never say that when they egging on the beat. When everybody put on a song, everybody egging out, nobody don't be saying that. We feel like that right now.
This wasn't just another situation spinning out of control. This was a straight-up hit. An execution-style move on Young Dolph, a man the city loved. The whole hood went silent. The entire state felt the impact, and hip-hop fans everywhere were asking one thing: how did the beef get so deep that it ended here? People weren't just sad, they were stunned, confused, and trying to connect every piece they'd been seeing for years. On November 17, 2021, the rapper born Adolph Robert Thornton Jr. walked into Makita's homemade butter cookies like he had many times to grab treats he loved, and that S where everything changed forever. No hiding, no secret spot, no late-night setup. This was the middle of the day. Cars driving by, people out shopping, kids heading home, and someone still decided to move with no hesitation, no fear, no care about witnesses or cameras. Dolph wasn't your average rapper trying to climb the ladder. He was a real Memphis success story. A self-made boss who built paper route empire from scratch and stayed independent, even when big labels tried to get him to fold. He made money his own way, lived by his own rules, and showed people from his city they could do the same without begging anyone for a shot.
Well, since our last interview, Justin Johnson, aka Straight Drop, got sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Young Dolph.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think they gave him another 50 years.
So when those shooters let off 22 rounds, 22, everyone understood right away this wasn't a random moment. This was personal, targeted, and intense in a way that shocked even the toughest people around. That kind of hit wasn't just about taking someone out. That was sending a message loud and clear, making an example out of a man who stood tall in his city. Surveillance cameras caught every second of it. No guessing, no rumors, just two dudes in ski masks, sliding up in a white Mercedes, hopping out with the blinkies ready, and firing like they came with one mission only. Duh, duh. And all this happened while Dolph was just inside trying to grab some cookies, minding his business like any regular day. Once those clips were emptied, the shooters dipped with zero hesitation, like they'd rehearsed the move 100 times before.
Did you know Big Juke?
Yeah, Juke was my boy.
Oh, that was your friend?
Yeah, that was my boy.
Well, in the trial, in the Justin Johnson Straight Drop trial, they say that Juke had a 100K hit on Dolph.
They vanished fast, leaving behind a neighborhood frozen in shock, a citywide heartbreak, and a community begging to know who could do something this cold and what pushed them there. Memphis PD didn't take long to apply pressure either. They came out the gate serious. Ready to show the public they weren't playing at all. Within months, the case started shifting, and authorities rounded up for suspects tied to the hit. Justin Straight Drop Johnson and Cornelius Smith were the ones officials claimed pulled the trigger, the alleged shooters who carried out the act. Then came Hernandez Govin, the man the feds labeled the mastermind, the one who supposedly put the whole operation together from the shadows.
How did you feel when Straight Drop got sentenced to the murder?
I don't feel no type of way. I don't put myself in that like that. I'll kill myself.
And after that, they locked up Marcus Johnson, Justin's half-brother, accused of helping the shooters get away and collect the money connected to the move. Even with all these arrests, people who understand how the streets operate knew this wasn't the full puzzle, not even close. Everyone could feel there were more layers, more names, more motives hiding behind the scenes. Someone wanted Young Dolph gone, and the entire city kept asking the same question. Who put the battery in these dudes' backs and got them ready to move like this? To understand why Dolph ended up catching those bullets, you gotta rewind and look at one of the messiest feuds the Memphis rap game ever witnessed. We talking about the long-running war between Young Dolph and Memphis's powerhouse, Yo Gotti, a beef that didn't start on the internet and wasn't kept in music, but spilled into real life with real consequences. This wasn't light tension, this was years of back and forth involving crews.
Straight drop only got $800 for that hit. Can you imagine killing somebody and your reward is a PlayStation and maybe a game or two?
I don't know if that's true or not.
Labels, jealousy, pride, street history, and multiple violent run-ins that left a trail of chaos behind. This was the kind of feud that didn't fade away. It grew, it evolved, and it left scars on the entire city. This was the kind of tension where both sides stayed on go, where any wrong look or wrong bar could spark a whole situation instantly. Every time their names got mentioned together, the air got heavy, like everyone was waiting to see who would make the next move first. And to understand how wild it got, you gotta rewind to around 2014. Back when Young Dolph's independent grind was starting to shake the game and make veterans pay attention, Yo Gotti, real name Mario Mims, was already stamped in Memphis, running his CMG label and building a strong roster. So on paper, him trying to sign Dolph looked like a clean business play, an OG trying to bring in a rising talent with momentum. But Dolph wasn't feeling that at all. He had his own blueprint, his own paper route empire he was shaping. And he refused to become just another artist, following someone else's orders, or letting another man steer his direction.
It's a messed up situation. It's a messed up situation. And the fact that both, people were getting killed on both sides. There was other shootings and murders that were happening, man.
Dolph wanted total control. His masters, his money, his legacy, all handled on his terms. And that's a boss mindset anyone can respect, even if it made some people uncomfortable. But word around the city was that Yo Gotti didn't take that rejection lightly. And according to Dolph, the man who once showed love flipped on him overnight. Dolph even jumped on Twitter in 2016 and posted, "Bra went from being my Nabo 1 fan and wanting to sign me to being my biggest hater." That tweet said everything he felt, like someone who had been cheering for him suddenly switched sides once they couldn't control him. Once Dolph made it known he wasn't joining CMG, the streets started noticing a shift, because when someone switches up over business and pride, things can turn dangerous fast.
But when it's egging on, it's all fun and games. When everybody promoting the beef against other rappers, they love it. That's the song you'll go watch, go listen to before you listen to his whole album.
And that's exactly what happened. This wasn't quiet tension. This was open smoke, and it didn't take long before both rappers started trading shots in their music with no hesitation at all. In 2016, Dolph dropped King of Memphis, a bold move that challenged Gotti's long-standing claim to that title, and that alone had the city buzzing heavy. But what came next took things to another level completely. In 2017, Young Dolph released Play with Yo Bitch, a track that aimed directly at Gotti, with no filters, no mercy, and no attempt to keep things respectful. The song was fiery, personal, and brutal enough that everybody knew this beef had crossed into a whole new territory the moment it hit the streets. Dolph wasn't just throwing light shade. He went straight for the jugular when he claimed he had relations with the mother of Gotti's child, and then doubled down with a music video showing a Yo Gotti lookalike getting clowned and embarrassed on camera.
Shit, them people slanging iron, like, people hurt for that shit, so that's why I hate that rap beef. I hate it, bro. I just hate it. I ain't never seen nothing good come from it. Never.
The cover art even showed missed calls from Ho Gotti Baby Moma, which was the kind of violation that hits deep in street culture. That's the type of disrespect you can't ignore, the kind that makes people want to answer with something way more serious than a diss track. And when both sides have real ties, real reputations, and access to folks who don't hesitate, disrespect like that can shift from entertainment to danger real quick. That is exactly what made this beef cross the line from rap drama to a situation where lives were on the line.
You know how many people miss Dolph and miss Big Juke? It fed a lot of people, bro. We just, we as on the outside looking in, we just think about that shit a couple of days and whatever else on social media after that, but they families, they cheering, they brothers and they cousins, and people hurt for that.
Because in Memphis, where gang history runs deep and loyalty is everything, those public shots don't stay digital, they bleed into the streets fast. When you disrespect someone who has real backup, when you challenge a man's pride in a city where your street name is everything, It's only a matter of time before someone decides to handle it the street way. And sadly, that's exactly what happened. Not once, but several times, showing how bad this situation had spiraled. The first major explosion came in February 2017 during CIA weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina.
But some records sold that the black man ain't gonna get the money for.
On February 25th, someone decided to make a bold move and lit up Young Dolph's bulletproof SUV with over 100 shots. Yeah, 100. That wasn't a warning. That was a coordinated hit by people who clearly wanted him gone for good. The only reason Dolph walked away was because he had the foresight to roll in a bulletproof whip. Without that, this story would have ended right there. But the violence didn't stop, not even close. Just 7 months later, in September 2017, Dolph got ambushed again. This time outside the Loews Hollywood Hotel in Los Angeles, and it was way more serious. He got hit multiple times and landed in critical condition, fighting for his life while the entire hip-hop community held its breath. And because Yo Gotti was staying at the same hotel, early reports listed him as a person of interest, but LAPD quickly stepped in and made it clear he was a suspect at all. One of Gotti's affiliates, Corey McClendon, got arrested for attempted murder shortly after the shooting, but just like the previous situation, he ended up beating the case and walking free. People in the city felt the tension rising even higher, first shooting over 100 rounds, then a Hollywood ambush. It was like every year the stakes got deadlier, and fans could see the path this was headed toward. Then came the moment that changed everything: the courtroom drama, the testimony, and the jaw-dropping allegations. Justin "Straight Drop" Johnson's trial finally kicked off in September 2024, almost 3 years after Dolph was taken out. And the entire city of Memphis was locked in on every update. This wasn't some small neighborhood case involving unknown names. This was a massive moment tied to one of the city's biggest legends, and everybody knew secrets were about to spill. This wasn't some regular trial. This was the type of courtroom showdown that could expose people with real pull in the Memphis rap scene. Johnson wasn't just facing a slap on the wrist. He was hit with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and possession of a strap as a felon. Charges like that don't come with second chances. If the jury says you're guilty, you're basically signing up to spend the rest of your natural life behind steel doors. The prosecution, led by Shelby County Assistant District Attorney Paul Hagerman, rolled in heavy with evidence that made the courtroom sit up straight. It had surveillance footage showing 2 masked shooters jumping out of that white Mercedes and unleashing firepower while Dolph was inside the cookie shop. It had phone records that placed Johnson and his co-defendants right in the zone when everything went down. They even had ballistics tying the weapons used in the murder straight back to the suspects. But the most damaging piece, the thing that cracked this case wide open, was the testimony from Johnson. His own co-defendant Cornelius Smith, who chose to flip and cooperate in hopes of shaving years off his sentence. When someone connected decides to talk, the whole vibe in court changes instantly, and that's exactly what happened. Cornelius Smith's testimony wasn't light, it was explosive. The kind of info that makes the entire room go silent because everyone knows something major is about to drop. He didn't just admit to pulling the trigger on Young Dolph. He started naming other people and suggesting that this hit went way above street-level drama. He made it sound like the plan didn't start with him and Johnson, it came from higher up, from people with influence, history, and connections. According to Smith's sworn testimony, this wasn't some random act of street aggression or a personal disagreement between small-time hustlers. He claimed the hit on Young Dolph was ordered by Anthony Big Juke Mims, Yo Gotti's older brother and a major figure tied into the CMG structure. That allegation hit the courtroom like a bomb because if true, it meant the situation was way bigger, way deeper, and connected to people many thought would never be linked to something this serious. Smith testified that Big Juke put up $100,000 on Young Dolph's head, a full 100 bands to take out one of Memphis's biggest rap stars. According to the version Smith laid out in court, this money wasn't just thrown around loosely, it was divided with purpose. He said he and Johnson were each supposed to get 40 racks for actually doing the job, while Hernandez Govin, the alleged mastermind who supposedly planned the whole thing, was set to receive 20 bands for coordinating the move. That claim alone had the courtroom buzzing. Smith didn't stop there. He went further and said he and Johnson even had in-person meetings with Big Juke in the weeks leading up to the murder to map out how everything was supposed to play out. He told the jury that once the hit was done and Dolph was gone, he and Johnson jumped on FaceTime with Big Juke to confirm the job was completed. That kind of detail hit the courtroom like a shockwave, because if true, it meant the planning went way deeper than anyone expected. But Smith's testimony got even wilder when he claimed someone connected to CMG paid 50 bands toward his legal fees after he got locked up in January 2022. According to Smith, he didn't know the exact person who sent the money, but he insisted the cash came from someone tied to CMG, suggesting there might have been an effort to protect or support the people who carried out the hit. If what he's saying is real, it points to something much bigger than a single order. It hints at a wider organizational involvement that could stretch into serious territory like obstruction or assisting people after the crime. But here's where things take a turn, because nothing in a case like this is ever simple. Justin Johnson's defense attorney, Luke Evans, came out hard and immediately attacked Smith's credibility. Evans told the court that Smith was lying, twisting facts or exaggerating whatever he could to save himself from a lifetime inside a cell. He said Smith was desperate to cut a deal and would say whatever the prosecutors wanted to hear if it meant shaving off years. Evans even brought up a letter Smith allegedly wrote to his family from jail, where Smith supposedly admitted he would say anything to avoid spending the rest of his life behind bars. If that letter is real, it raises big questions about whether Smith was telling the truth or just telling a story that he hoped would get him out of a life sentence. If that letter is real, it would blow Smith's whole credibility to pieces and make everybody wonder whether anything he said in court could be trusted. It would raise the question of whether he was telling the truth or just feeding prosecutors the story he thought would save him from spending forever behind a cell. And to make things shakier, Evans pointed out several inconsistencies in Smith's version, especially when it came to the money he claimed he was promised. Smith testified he was supposed to get $40,000 for playing his role in the murder, but then admitted under oath that he only received $800 total, $500 at first and another $300 later. That kind of difference is the type that makes a jury squint their eyes and wonder what else might not be adding up. But even with the holes, even with the doubts, the jury still sided with the prosecution and decided Smith's testimony, paired with the rest of the evidence, was enough. On September 26, 2024, Justin Johnson was found guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and being a felon with a weapon. The verdict came after jurors looked at everything: the surveillance video, the cell phone records, the ballistic matches, and yes, Smith's testimony, even with all its problems. When the judge handed Johnson his sentence, it was life in prison, which in Memphis equals a minimum of 51 years before you can even think about parole. Johnson is around 30 right now, so even if he somehow survives the entire sentence, he'd be in his 80s by the time he has a chance to see daylight as a free man again. In simple terms, his life on the outside is over. That courtroom sealed it with one decision. But while Johnson's conviction brought some justice to Dolph's family and fans, it also cracked open a whole new wave of questions. Questions way bigger than just one shooter or one co-defendant. Because if Smith's testimony about Big Juke ordering the hit is even partially true, and the jury clearly felt it had weight, then people want to know who else might have been aware of what was happening? Who else was part of the conversations? Who else helped set things in motion? The biggest question burning through Memphis: did Yo Gotti himself know anything? Or was he kept completely in the dark, while his own brother was allegedly planning something this serious? There's been no public evidence tying Yo Gotti directly to ordering, supporting, or approving any hit. All the allegations have focused on Big Juke, not Gotti. But this situation gets messy, because Big Juke wasn't some distant relative. He was Yo Gotti's blood brother and deeply involved in CMG business. And here's the part that shook people even more. Big Juke himself was killed in a shooting in Memphis in January 2024, just months before Smith's allegations about him surfaced in court. His death left a huge gap, not only in the CMG structure, but in the investigation into what really happened behind the scenes of Dolph's murder. Big Juke's murder came out in court like a dark shadow hanging over the whole story, because the way he died left more questions than answers. He got taken out outside a Memphis restaurant during a repass after a funeral. Broad daylight energy, people everywhere, and to this day, nobody has been arrested for it. Some folks in the streets whispered that it might have been retaliation for Young Dolph's death, maybe even done by people connected to Paper Route Empire, but that's all talk, with zero proof behind it. Nothing confirmed, nothing official, What makes the timing so wild is that Big Juke never got the chance to respond to Smith's accusations. Not one word. He never defended himself against claims that he dropped a $100,000 bounty on Dolph. Never explained his side. Never confirmed or denied anything. If he had lived long enough, he could have cleared names or exposed others or even flipped the entire story on its head with whatever he knew. Instead, his death shut down what might have been one of the biggest pieces of the truth. And then you've got Hernandez Govan, the man prosecutors called the mastermind. The one accused of coordinating the entire hit. Govan pleaded not guilty from day one, held his position, and ended up being found not guilty in August 2025. Word around Memphis was that Govan had strong ties to both Yo Gotti and Big Juke, with photos, old posts, and behind-the-scenes connections showing he was deep in the CMG circle. But just like with Gotti, there's no public evidence that links Govan directly to Yo Gotti when it comes to this murder. Every allegation tied to him focuses on his relationship with Big Juke, not the CMG boss himself. Prosecutors even offered Govan a plea deal early on, but he turned it down and rolled the dice with a jury, choosing to maintain his innocence and fight the case head-on like he had nothing to hide. And after that not guilty verdict dropped, a lot of people started questioning whether the prosecution ever had enough to tie him in the first place. Then there's the fourth defendant, Yamarcus Johnson, Justin Johnson's half-brother. He took a plea deal in June 2023 and admitted to accessory charges, confessing that he helped the shooters escape after the hit and helped with payment behind the scenes. His testimony included text messages where Cornelius Smith was asking questions about Big Juke, which did back up certain parts of Smith's story about Juke being connected to the planning. But just like Smith, Yamarcus is cooperating with prosecutors in hopes of getting a lighter sentence. So you have to look at everything he says, knowing he's motivated to give investigators something that makes them happy. Cooperation always comes with that gray area where truth gets mixed with self-preservation. Beyond those four defendants, investigators also checked possible links between the murder and other people around Yo Gotti, especially Black Youngsta, who was caught up in that 2017 Charlotte situation where Dolph's truck got hit with over 100 rounds. In early 2022, right after Johnson and Smith were arrested, reports came out saying they hired attorney Art Horn, a lawyer who had previously represented both Yo Gotti and Black Youngsta. That instantly made people suspicious and wondering if CMG might still be connected behind the curtain. Horn later dropped them as clients and publicly stated he wasn't hired by CMG or by anyone connected to Gotti. But that brief moment, that small connection, added yet another twist to an already messy and emotional case. And it made the entire situation feel even more tangled, like there were pieces the public still didn't have. Which brings us to the one question Memphis cannot shake, the question that stays floating over this entire case like a cloud. If Big Juke really did order the hit on Young Dolph? The big question that still hangs over everything is this. If Big Juke really ordered the hit on Young Dolph, is he moving on his own accord, handling street business without Yo Gotti knowing anything about it? Or was Yo Gotti aware of what was being planned, maybe even involved in the decision-making, or possibly the one who gave the green light in the first place? With no direct evidence linking Gotti to the murder plot, and with Big Juke gone before he could ever be questioned, the truth might stay buried forever, leaving the real story locked inside the minds of people who will never speak. One of the biggest unanswered pieces is the claim that someone tied to CMG dropped 50 bands on Cornelius Smith's legal fees. If that detail is real, and remember, Smith testified to it under oath, then it hints at a level of organization way bigger than just Big Juke acting alone. Think about what that implies. Someone connected to CMG willingly paid that kind of money to support a man accused of taking out Young Dolph. That would suggest either direct involvement in the planning, or at the very least, a strong effort to protect the shooters from flipping when the pressure hit. But here's the issue. The details around that alleged payment are vague, foggy, and nothing has been publicly confirmed. It's also important to look at other possibilities, because in Memphis's tight street culture, it's not unusual for associates, distant homies, or even unrelated allies to help with legal fees when someone is staring down decades in prison. Sometimes it's loyalty. Sometimes it's fear they might start talking, and sometimes it's simple pressure from the environment. But it happens with or without big organizations behind it. Another part of this story that just doesn't sit right is the massive gap between the alleged $100,000 bounty and the tiny $800 Smith said he actually received. That isn't just a mix-up, that's a crazy difference. Not even 1% of what he claims he was promised. If a street dude gets told he'll receive 40 racks to handle a hit, and then after actually doing it, he only gets $800, that's enough to make anyone furious. Under normal street logic, someone would be ready to retaliate, or at least refuse to protect the people who played them that badly. But instead of lashing out, Smith ended up cooperating with the authorities, testifying against Johnson, all while saying he got shorted. That raises a serious question. Why would the same people who supposedly had access to a full 100 bands and allegedly had enough money to also drop 50 bands on legal fees turn around and short the shooters this hard? That type of move doesn't line up unless something deeper was happening behind the scenes. One explanation is that the $100,000 bounty was never real. Maybe it was inflated, misunderstood, or completely made up to boost a narrative. Another possibility is that the full payment was supposed to happen, but the delivery got blocked because Big Juke died only 2 years after the murder, taking whatever money or instructions he held straight to the grave. Or maybe the people funding everything didn't want a large payment floating around, worried it could be traced, exposing whoever was behind the operation and tying them directly to the hit. In the world, these men were moving in money, silence, and loyalty all mixed together. And when things go wrong, the truth gets buried under layers of fear, pride, and survival. Whatever the real explanation is, the fact that Smith only pulled $800 from such a high-profile murder makes the whole idea of a huge, well-organized hit look shaky as ever. If this was truly a CMGO-approved operation, with 100 bands available for the bounty and another 50 bands ready to cover legal fees, you would expect everything to be handled with precision, tight planning, clear communication, and shooters actually getting paid what they were promised. Instead, everything about the payout looks sloppy, disorganized, and way too amateur for a major music industry figure to be behind it in an official way. The messy way it played out raises the question of whether Big Juke or CMG's alleged involvement was as wide and structured as Smith made it sound in court. The whole thing feels like a mix of street emotion, personal grudges, and chaos, not a clean top-tier operation run by people with serious money and power. Then January 2024 hit, and Big Juke's murder added a whole new tragic and complicated layer to this situation. He got taken out outside a Memphis restaurant during a repass, a meal after a repass, with his own mother reportedly present and forced to witness her son's last moments. Another person got hit too, and even though police offered a $4,000 reward, nobody came forward, and the case still has 0 arrests. The timing of Big Juke getting killed just 2 years after Dolph's murder, and right around the time the streets were already whispering about his alleged role in ordering the hit, made people wonder if this was street justice coming back around. A lot of folks think it might have been retaliation from people connected to Young Dolph or Paper Route Empire. But that's all speculation with nothing proven. But what Big Juke's death did do was remove what could have been the most important witness in uncovering the full truth behind Dolph's murder. If he really ordered the hit, then he knew who, if anyone above him, had knowledge or gave approval. Did he speak with his brother Yo Gotti about the plan? Did he run it through other people inside CMG's leadership? Or was he moving solo, acting out of loyalty to the organization, trying to handle someone he saw as a threat and a disrespectful rival? These are questions only Big Juke could have answered, and now he's gone, so whatever he knew died right along with him. His murder closed the door on a huge piece of this case, silencing someone who could have confirmed or denied the biggest allegations, exposed others, or even cleared people who had nothing to do with it. Without his voice, the investigation loses what might have been the key to unraveling the whole conspiracy and understanding who truly holds responsibility for Young Dolph's death. And that leads us into the bigger, painful question. Young Dolph's murder forces us to face the deadly intersection of rap music, street culture, and violence in the hood. When reputations, pride, money, and loyalty collide, the cost is almost always the same, and the price people pay is heavy. The hip-hop world and its fans have always had a complicated relationship with beef. It's part of the culture, but it's also something that can get out of control fast. Lyrical battles, claiming the crown, dropping diss tracks to prove who's really running things. That competitive spirit has been here since day one. Some of the greatest moments in hip-hop history came from artists pushing each other creatively, firing back at disrespect, and trying to outshine the next man with pure skill. But when the rappers involved aren't just artists, when they're tied into real neighborhoods, real crews, and real street situations, everything changes fast. Suddenly, the line between entertainment and real-life danger gets thin, and what starts as music can flip into actual violence with no warning. What begins as a marketing strategy or just a track can turn into something deadly once pride, ego, and street ties get mixed together. Young Dolph left behind children who will now have to grow up without their pops, a loss they'll feel every day of their lives. Big Juke left behind family too, including loved ones who watched the tragedy happen right in front of them, the people who pulled the triggers or helped organize these hits. They're locked up or about to spend the rest of their lives behind steel doors, their futures gone before they even hit full adulthood. All these lives destroyed. For what reason? Was it pride? Was it respect? Was it competition in Memphis rap scene? Or loyalty to a label, a crew, or a neighborhood? None of those things are worth the bodies, the heartbreak, or the futures lost. The price paid is massive, and whatever someone thought they were gaining doesn't even come close to what was destroyed along the way. The truth is harsh. We might never know who should be fully held responsible for Young Dolph's murder. Too many voices are gone, too many stories are hidden, and too many key people are dead or refusing to talk. But one thing we can say with certainty is that Young Dolph's death was a devastating loss of life, talent, and community strength. It tore apart families, shook an entire city, and showed just how dangerous the mix of rap beef and street culture can become when it crosses the line. Young Dolph wasn't just an artist. He was someone who built his empire from scratch, kept control over his business, gave back to his community, and inspired people in Memphis and beyond. His career was proof of what a man could accomplish with hard work and independence, and his life touched countless people in and outside the rap world. His death didn't just silence a rapper, it took away a father, a leader, and one of the city's most positive sources of energy. And yes, the courts handed out some justice with the convictions of the men who physically carried out the hit. But the bigger questions remain floating in the air with no answers. Why was he really targeted? Who truly made the call? And were powerful figures in Memphis music world involved in ways the public still doesn't fully know? Those pieces remain unsolved, sitting in the shadows of a case that changed the rap world forever. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to watch another fascinating video like this, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.